Imagine being able to send your clone to work or school while you stay comfortable in your bed to sleep. Make him clean the house, iron, cook, go shopping while you are lying on the sofa watching television. Wouldn't that be wonderful? Also think if we could clone a loved one who is no longer there, thus bringing a copy of him back to life. Are these all typical sci-fi movie fantasies, or is it really possible? Thanks to the progress of science and the development of biotechnology, practices that were once even unimaginable are now possible. Let's see what human cloning is, how it happens, and if it could really work. Human cloning is a process that allows to give birth to a new individual identical to another, that is, with the same genetic heritage. It can be divided into 3 types. Gene cloning consists in producing copies of genes or DNA sequences extracted from an organism. Therapeutic cloning consists in the cloning of embryonic stem cells that can be used in regenerative medicine, for example, to obtain organs for transplantation. In this way, the obstacle of immune rejection is overcome, and there is no need to look for other suitable donors. Therapeutic cloning is also used to treat damaged nerve cells or to grow healthy tissue in the laboratory, which can then be used to replace damaged or diseased ones. Reproductive cloning. It is what we generally refer to when we talk about cloning, and consists in the nuclear transfer of somatic cells to obtain eggs that could develop into adult individuals. On a technical level, it is like therapeutic cloning, with the difference that the developed embryo would then be implanted in the woman's uterus and not sacrificed. An example of human cloning is that which occurs naturally in the case of homozygous twins. That is when a fertilized egg divides, creating 2 or more embryos that carry almost identical DNA. Advantages of human cloning. According to supporters of human cloning, people of great intellectual or artistic success could be cloned, who have shown excellent skills, for example in sports, music, science, and many other fields. In this way, according to them, if this were done in large numbers, the genetic constitution of humanity would be improved. Here arises the first great problem of human cloning. One of the most important limitations of human cloning is that it is possible to clone a person's genes, but not the individual himself. We cannot reproduce much of who we are, such as our intellectual abilities, moral values, character, and personality. They are all characteristics different from the anatomical and physiological ones that make up the individual. In the future, a clone may also be created with the same physical appearance as the donor, but will never have the exact same life experiences as him. In this way, a very different individual will develop with a way of thinking and acting totally different from the original one. On the other hand, it is known that a person's environmental influences begin already in the womb and continue after birth, in childhood, in adolescence, and throughout life. There is therefore no certainty that the genomes of individuals with excellent attributes, when cloned, produce individuals similarly endowed with those same virtues or intelligence. The environments cannot be reproduced, especially several decades later, as well as the education received. In simpler words, identical genomes produce in different environments individuals who can be very different. We are much more than a simple product of our DNA. In the end, almost all of us have known clones, the homozygous twins. Although they are almost identical genetically, they remain 2 completely different individuals with different personalities and identities. But how does human cloning work? How would that be? Any attempt at human cloning would most likely use reproductive cloning techniques, where a mature somatic cell, typically a skin cell, would be used, from which DNA is extracted. An unfertilized egg is then taken from the mother and deprived of its nucleus, the part of the cell that contains the genetic material, which is replaced with that of a somatic cell previously taken from the individual who wants to clone. After a first phase of development in the test tube, an embryo would be formed that would be implanted in a woman's uterus, where it would continue to grow, and if all goes well, after 9 months, a new life would be born. Since the nucleus of the somatic cell carries all the genetic patrimony, the individual obtained would have the same genetic identity as the donor. This baby would develop just like any other human being, but with the only difference, that he would have an identical twin older in age. Here arises the second limit of human cloning. Looking at the results of mammalian cloning, we see that historically it has led to extremely high rates of death, with a high percentage of miscarriages, serious anomalies in the development of clones, and risk of malformations. For some scientists, cloned animals die younger because they inherit cells of the donor's age, which are older than those that would develop from normally fertilized embryos. Under accusation are the telomeres, ends of chromosomes, known to be involved in the cellular aging process, which progressively shorten with age, and according to some scientists, also in the case of cloning. The third limitation of human cloning is the ethical, social, and religious values that come into play when trying to decide whether a person can be cloned. Most people are against it, so much so that many countries have passed laws expressly banning reproductive cloning and consider it a crime against the human species. In some countries, therapeutic cloning and the creation of human embryos for scientific research on stem cells are permitted, but the cloning of individuals is prohibited. In recent decades, science has made great strides, and researchers have cloned a wide range of biological materials, including genes, cells, tissues, and even entire organisms. One of the most famous cases of animal cloning dates back to July 1996 with the sheep Dolly, the first mammal to be artificially cloned from an adult cell, using the DNA of the mammary cell of an adult sheep. The researchers achieved this goal after 277 unsuccessful attempts. Most pregnancies ended in miscarriage, or new babies suffered from severe handicaps, including dislocated limbs, dysfunctional organs, and premature death. After only 7 years of life, Dolly was euthanized because her health was rapidly deteriorating due to progressive lung disease and a potentially debilitating form of arthritis. After Dolly, human cloning has become a hot topic of debate. Some people have expressed interest in cloning their deceased pets in hopes of getting a similar animal to replace the dead one. The time does not appear so far away when, in addition to the cloning of domestic animals, it will also be possible to clone human beings. It will therefore not be appropriate to ask if this practice will be feasible, but if it can be considered ethically acceptable. At the moment, there is no scientific evidence that anyone has cloned human embryos to develop new individuals, but who knows? The world is big, and some laboratory hidden underground in some remote place on the planet may have already done so. And what do you think of reproductive cloning? Would you be for or against? Let me know in the comments.